From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Sign-ups for trade aid are now live. That's as ag groups stress the timeline for calming the tariff storm.
The timetable was very important to us.
The tariff fallout reaching nearly every sector of agriculture.
I'm Michelle Rook. We'll get reaction from the country to the ongoing trade war and recently announced trade aid package.
In agribusiness, is the trade aid enough to keep farmers afloat?
It only covers about 2 billion bushels of beans, and we're already producing over 4 billion bushels of beans.
And prices aren't so super for this superfood.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Tyne Morgan. Clinton Griffiths is on assignment. After more than a month of talk and debate over the impact of tariffs to farmers' bottom line, those on the front lines can now sign up for some relief. The $4.7 billion of tariff aid will be distributed after an application process. Remember, the payments for most crops will be based on actual production numbers for this year. Now, to sign up or see if you qualify, visit farmers.gov and click on the Manage tab. Details are under the Market Facilitation Program. You can also sign up at your local FSA office. Well, the American Farm Bureau Federation calling the Market Facilitation Program a Band-Aid and not a permanent fix. Zippy Duvall telling me the funds will help some farmers get through this crop year. The Federation says it's not backing down from its unwavering support of the Trump administration. However, Duvall says the Federation is making its concerns over trade very clear.
Our concern is the timeline. And that's what I keep telling this administration. I've been in front of the Vice President, Mr. Lighthouser, 2 times now, the Vice President twice and Mr. Lighthouser once, and told them the timetable was very important to us. We were on their side. We understand what they're trying to do, but how long can we stand the down economy? And how long is that runway? And we're going to stick with them, and this mitigation package that the USDA has brought out will help. The trade treaty in Mexico will help. And we just can't stop but that. We got to be on the aggressive side.
It's that runway of time that's running out. That's as exports of key commodities like soybeans typically pick up in the months of September and October. And as Michelle Rook reports, the tariff pain is rippling through the ag economy and hitting nearly every sector of agriculture right now.
Farmers here in the Northwestern Corn Belt have generally been supportive of the trade war, saying they'll take short-term pain for long-term gain as long as that pain doesn't last too long. Soybean farmers this far west are hit the hardest because such a large percentage of their crop goes to China.
70–80% of our soybeans are exported, and all of that pretty much goes to the West Coast.
Couple that with basis levels that are historically wide for beans, in some elevators not even bidding.
The concern is right now farmers aren't quite sure of what's going to happen during harvest. Where's their product going to go? And when you're in limbo, you're not sure where price is.
Well, I think that's the biggest concern. Up in our area, it's very common to see $1.30 negative to the Chicago Board of Trade.
Pork producers in the region have also felt a huge market loss from the trade war, estimated at $40 to $45 per head.
If we look at the losses that are looking to accrue to Minnesota pork producers are basically equivalent to the economic gain that Minnesota had from hosting the Super Bowl.
Although pork producers have some hope with a Mexican deal that will at least open that market back up.
Mexico, I think, is still #1 in volume, and so it's huge. And the thing is that they take the products that we don't consume in the U.S., and so it's a lot of the variety meats and things like that, huge in the ham market.
Cattle producers have been less impacted, but fear the same fate if the trade war has a long tail.
So trade is, very important to the beef industry. Right now, it hasn't probably affected us near as much as probably the pork and the grains, but it will happen if we don't get things straightened out.
Meanwhile, USDA recently announced a trade aid package that gives soybean farmers $1.65 per bushel on half their 2018 crop. But they say they want trade, not aid.
It's a Band-Aid. We would prefer to get our money from the market rather than from the government.
And pork producers don't believe the $4 per head payment they'll receive comes even close to market losses.
It's a big amount of every pig that I sell off of our farm comes from trade, and so the $4 is a very small amount, and you could say it's a Band-Aid.
Farmers also agree the trade war needs to be settled quickly, but Terry Branstad, ambassador to China, says he's not sure how long it will last.
Well, I can't really predict it. We're continuing to have discussions. We've had several meetings, and we're going to continue to work on it.
But he believes the tariffs are completely warranted.
China has not treated us or other countries fairly for a long time.
So farmers hold on and hope they can make it until the trade war is resolved.
We're on the 4th year of a really bad financial situation in agriculture. And then put this on top of the 4 bad years, that's what's going to be tough.
I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
The trade aid package may be one reason why this month's ag barometer from Purdue University and the CME ticked higher. The barometer reading increased this month to 129, following a significant drop for the month of July. Purdue economists say the shift in sentiment is primarily due to an increase in producers' perception of current conditions. Now, Purdue collected survey responses from farmers in mid-August after USDA outlined the assistance package in general terms, but it was prior to details coming out on how payments would be allocated. USDA did release those details last Monday.
One of the questions we posed was along the lines of asking people whether or not the relief plan proposed by the Trump administration would relieve their concerns about the impact of tariffs on farm income. And 47% of the people in the survey said that they thought the relief plan would either somewhat or at least partially relieve their concerns. And I think that probably drove the increase in the current condition index and in turn the improvement in the barometer.
The survey shows producers are still concerned about a trade war, but they were somewhat less concerned in August than they were in July. Despite the 12-point increase, producer sentiments do remain well below its late spring readings of 141 in May and 143 in June. Well, it's a big week for the Farm Bill as the conferencing process begins. Both House and Senate conferees will hash out the differences in the Farm Bill. The most contentious issue is tying work requirements to SNAP. That's as we rapidly approach the September 30th deadline when the current law expires. Now, if the deadline is not met, Congress will need to extend the 2014 Farm Bill. However, even that move is tricky as 39 programs, including conservation and organic agriculture and farmers market programs, will lapse with an extension. Well, it's harvest time across the South, but farmers could be facing delays as Gordon churns in the Gulf. Cindy Clausen joins us now with crop comments. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Tyne. We start crop comments in Washington County, Georgia. A NASS crop reporter says corn harvest is progressing quickly. It's over halfway completed. 3/4 of the crop is rated good to excellent, but dry conditions have affected pasture land. We'll see if that changes in the coming days with the tropical system moving ashore. And in Sauk County, Wisconsin, folks are dealing with very wet conditions. Southern and central Wisconsin has been struggling with heavy rain and flooding all last week. A farmer posted some comments on AgWeb about the conditions. He says, "We can't put together a week of sunshine for anything. Impossible to make dry hay." But the crops are looking good. And taking a look at our wind speed forecast, you'll notice that the Great Lakes will be a bit on the windy side today, and also in the Gulf Coast states with the remnants of Tropical Storm Gordon. You can see that moves on up to the north. There's a front moving through the nation's midsection, and we'll see some stronger winds with that as we get into the next couple of days, especially as we get into those afternoon hours. And we'll start to see Gordon kind of joining forces with that as we head into especially later on Thursday. We'll have a look at your national forecast coming up in just a few minutes, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Keeping track of the shifting market prices has never been so easy. Get the latest commodity prices sent directly to your cell phone with market updates. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Still to come, as you prepare to sign up for tariff relief aid, Rabo AgriFinance dives into the stipulations surrounding payments this year. In Packer TV, we'll see why low-bush blueberries, one of those so-called superfoods, isn't feeling so super these days. And this is more than just physical therapy. These folks are throwing some serious punches at a neurological disease. A Brazilian court has ruled that farmers in that country can continue to use glyphosate to control weeds. A month ago, a lower level court issued an injunction that could have blocked its registration and use. But on Monday, a higher court overturned the injunction. Meanwhile, Argentina is reinstating a tax on crop exports. Those taxes had been repealed in December 2015 by newly elected president, as he thought farm exports without the tax could help bolster the economy. The move means exports of corn, wheat, and beef will be taxed again. For Argentina's chief cash crop, which is soybeans and soy meal, there will be an increase in the tax rate. Let's get a check on commodities. We turn now to the floor of the CME.
What a day it's been for livestock. We had cattle and feeder cattle starting lower on the day, but here as we're creeping into the close, we've had really nice reversals and are now trading higher on the day. These outside reversal higher days in both cattle and feeder cattle would suggest that we could see some follow through to the upside. As far as the news is concerned, what we're really watching is in Romania, there's an expansion of the African swine flu. One of the major producers there is having to cull their entire herd, about 120,000 animals or so. And that is a concern, and this is now growing globally. So now we're thinking that there's a chance that we could see better exports. Our exports for cattle have already been very strong. Our domestic demand has been very strong with consumer confidence at 18-year highs. But now we're thinking for pork and beef that our exports can be really good as well. So that's giving a fair amount of boost to the markets today. This is Ted Seifert of Zaner Ag Hedge coming to you from the CME floor.
Here now is Steve Nicholson of Rabo Agri-Finance. Steve, we saw this tariff relief aid kind of details surrounding that come out from USDA this week. At first blush, looks like it's a pretty good deal for soybean farmers, but there's a lot of restrictions around this package.
There is a lot of restrictions, and I'll go back, not a lot of details. I mean, we had the package. So it said $1.60 a bushel, and farmers going, ooh, I look forward to that. It's 3.6 billion bushels for soybeans, and think this all looks pretty good. You start looking at kind of do the back end calculations, and you're looking at this and go, if I take 1.65 and look at, $3.6 billion or $3.6 billion, it only covers about 2 billion bushels of beans, and we're already producing over 4 billion bushel beans, and you're saying, but you start looking at the restrictions. You can't, no one can get more than $125,000, and you've got, net farm income or net taxable income over the last 3 years has to be below $900,000 to qualify. So there's going to be a lot of people, unfortunately, are not going to get any relief because they don't fall in those particular categories. So it looks good on the surface, but you start digging down and you're like, makes you concerned.
Okay, so we know what relief aid possibly some of these producers are going to get. Not all of them will.
Yep.
But with the soybean market, how big of a deal would a trade win be for this market right now?
I think it would be a big deal because right now you're now within 30 days of the big trade time for the U.S. exports. And if we don't get this, we're going to continue to see soybeans be down at a very, very low level price-wise, and again, it's like we've talked about on corn. It gives an opportunity to move up and an opportunity to get some sales off the books.
So we've seen low exports this summer, but that's typical. So you're saying, though, as the export season heats up, this is when we need to see these trade deals
We need to see them go up. I think the good news is, I would say one thing, beans are going to find U.S. beans are going to find their way to China because the world doesn't have enough beans to move. So U.S. beans will go there. It's just going to be inefficient, and the U.S. farmers won't get the price they should get for that price.
All right.
Or for the beans going through.
Got it. Steve Nicholson, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll have much more right here on Ag Day.
Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
Welcome back. Well, time now to check weather with meteorologist Cindy Clausen. Cindy, looking at this root zone moisture map, you can really tell the areas that have had a lot of rain, had flooding, parts of Iowa, Wisconsin, Kansas.
Yeah.
But that tropical storm, as it moves inward, it seems like we're going to see a lot more moisture in kind of the southeast.
Absolutely. We're going to see this map probably change quite a bit over the next week. But take a look at what is happening in the central United States. As you heard earlier in the show from our Farmer and Crop Watch, well, we had a lot of rain up in the upper Midwest into the western parts of the Great Lakes. Lots of rain, lots of flooding. We've been hearing about it over the past week or so, and you can really see that reflected on our root zone moisture map, as we've really got a lot of moisture there. And as Tyne mentioned, we're going to start to see some of this get a lot wetter in the Gulf Coast states as Gordon drops 3 to 6 inches of rain, kind of widespread, but there obviously are going to be some higher amounts in some areas as well. Let's take a look at that map, and here's Gordon. That's going to be making some slow movement off to the northwest. We also have a frontal system that's going to be draped from the Great Lakes all the way down into the central and southern plains. Those are the two big weather makers as we get into the next 24 hours. The cold front swings, kind of pivots more through the northeastern states and kind of remains stationary as you get over towards the central and southern plains, while Gordon makes a northward push. Eventually these two will come together, but you can see how we'll see that front moving through now, getting into the mid-Atlantic states, but some scattered showers and thunderstorms for a lot of the especially western Gulf Coast states and on into parts of Texas as well. The estimate of the past 24 hours precipitation, well, there's Gordon right there, and then you can see the front, the two big makers of rain for us, and those are both going to be continuing to be big rain makers, especially Gordon, where areas, our model is showing upwards of 7-8 inches of rain in some of these spots. Again, it could be somewhat localized, but look for some heavy rain, especially on the panhandle of Florida and up into Alabama and into Mississippi as well, and all along that cold front along the nation's midsection. Temperature-wise, it's cooler behind that front, much more comfortable temperatures there in the 60s and 70s, still hot and humid out ahead of that front. Cooler overnight, low temperatures there as we see 50s and 60s, but still some muggy 70s in much of the southeastern states, fairly comfortable in the northwest. And then as we get into tomorrow, we'll see that front move a little further to the south, at least in the northeastern part of the country. That will bring some cooler temperatures there, but still some fairly warm and muggy conditions in the southeast. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on some local cities. Kennewick, Washington, sunny and warm for you today with a high of 86 degrees. Heading over to Aberdeen, South Dakota, sunny and a little cooler with a high of 71. And Monroeville, Alabama, showers and thunderstorms for you with a high of 84.
Well, later, see why some folks in their golden years are putting on boxing gloves. Find out what they hope to knock out of the ring. But first, while blueberry prices have taken a beating in recent years, we'll look at the current condition of the superfood. Well, the U.S. cranberry crop is one of the victims of a trade war. China placing a 40% duty on American dried cranberries this year. But it's more than trade weighing on prices. It's also a glut of the fruit. Now, cranberry farmers are asking the federal government for permission to destroy a quarter of their crop. The Boston Globe reporting if the government approves the request, farmers will keep about 100 million pounds of cranberries off the market. Last year, USDA showed cranberry farmers saw prices $3.50 a barrel below what it costs to produce the crop. Meanwhile, U.S. growers of wild blueberries are cutting acreage of their harvested crop this year. Almost all of the low bush crop in this country comes from Maine. These blueberries are mostly used in frozen form or processed foods. The industry has been struggling with long-term price drops, weather, disease, and foreign competition. This year's harvest has nearly wrapped up. Last year, harvesters collected about 68 million pounds, which was the lowest total since 2005.
Well, it's just that I've been in the business for 42 years, and we've had peaks and valleys in the industry. And I think this is just another valley we're going through. It's hard to build demand and supply on the market when you don't have enough fruit to go around.
The same berries are harvested in Canada, and the weakness of the Canadian dollar has also hurt the U.S. industry because Canadian berries sell for less. Up next, are you ever too old to get in the boxing ring? Apparently not if you're fighting for your life. Details when we come back.
In the Country, sponsored by the all-new Kubota Sidekick, a utility vehicle that lets you climb more, cover more, tow more, and enjoy more. Visit KubotaUSA.com.
Well, it's a grim reality. More than 60,000 new cases of Parkinson's disease are diagnosed each year. Now patients can beat back against the neurological disease. Doctors at the University of Missouri Health are prescribing a program called Rock Steady Boxing. Now, research is showing that this form of exercise is improving symptoms in people with Parkinson's disease. The class begins like any other workout for a mature group with warm-ups that focus on balance and agility. Then it's time to box.
Working the legs, the arms, the balance. We're also working on their voice and being loud so that they can be heard. And at the same time with the numbers, it's cognitive function. So we're also working on their brains.
The trainer yells numbers that correlate to punches, so a jab, a hook, or an uppercut thrown with the right or left hand. Then with loud voices, the group repeats the numbers. It's an effort to keep the brain active while making large movements. Who knew? Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're so glad you tuned in. For all of us at AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan. Have a great day in farm country.